Hello folks, welcome to the very first episode of Creative Voices. My name is Jeff, I'll be your host for this series. A very quick introduction to myself. I'm a commercial and wedding photographer. I'm also the owner of Tree Bark Store, a new space in Moycullen village, just outside Galway. We're a specialty coffee bar that retails Irish crafts and goods, and we have a photo studio on site. So the concept behind Creative Voices is to spend some time talking to creatives in the industry, be it artists, artisans, people who work with their hands, or whatever we may find along the way, and talk to them about them and their product and their process. So today we're talking to Roswell Stanley, or Ros, we should say, a native here to Roscahill near Moycullen, and Ros actually stocks his product here in our store. And I guess maybe the best thing to do would be let Ros introduce himself and tell us about what he does.
Thanks very much, Jeff. So I live in Old Town. I moved to Moycullen in 97 and we built up in Old Town and I built my workshop. I went to Letterfrack Furniture College, studied there, and then I went to work for a guy down in Laois for 2 years and then decided to try it for myself. So I started off with wood turning. And until I could build up machines to make furniture, get back to what I was trained in. But I never forgot about the wood turning. I loved the wood turning and the wood carving as well. So I did furniture for many years until the recession came and killed all of the handmade crafts at that stage. But, luckily the smaller crafts were still selling. I decided to, at that time, customers were coming to me. So I decided, after they stopped in the recession, I thought, why wait for the customer to come? Why not go and approach the shops and the customers? And so that's what I'm doing, and such as yourselves, the wonderful shop. And that seems to be working and building it back up again.
And so did you very much shift from making larger pieces to working with smaller, more bespoke kind of design then, really? The furniture was always bespoke and tailor-made. So people would come to me who couldn't find what they wanted in furniture shops. Funnily, we had such a time to find a square table when we moved into our house.
Really?
Maybe if I'd known you then, you could have sorted us out.
Perfect. But that kind of thing. And as well as that, at that time, it was the Celtic Tiger, don't forget. People didn't mind, and they, a lot of the people I was making furniture for, say, had holiday homes and second homes and all this kind of thing. I might start with a dining table and chairs to kitchen table and chairs and go through the house like that, so it was a great time. But it was all handmade hardwood furniture. The joints I used were, dovetails, mortise and tenons, all the traditional jointing technique. I basically was trying to make furniture that was going to last. So it was like today's antiques, if you know what I mean.
Okay.
That's what I was aiming for, so.
And did you find at the time that the desire from people who were buying your product was on an aesthetic kind of level, or more to fit their needs, as you said, because they couldn't find it somewhere else?
It was both. A lot of people who came to me, they realised that the difference between, say, IKEA's furniture, nothing wrong with it, but it's not built to last like that. And rather than coming, because they would maybe have, asked for a dining table that would stay in the family. Many of them said that we want to get a dining table made that, that our kids can maybe
So it's like
on.
Basically creating their own antiques for future use nearly.
Exactly, yeah. So
that's interesting. I never thought of it that way, actually. And the decision that you made, as you said, was to move towards something a bit different rather than wait for the market to come to you.
Yeah, well, when that stopped, and you can't blame people. At that time, it was scary. I thought, I have to now go back out and approach. And I had been in craft shops before, but then when I was making furniture and customers were coming to me through advertising in magazines and things, then I didn't need to approach craft shops and shops. So then I thought, okay, it's time now to go back out. Again, and that's working out fine as well. Then getting the name out there, and this is a totally new product that I've come up with, and it's amazing how the design came actually, because it started off a little cube. When I start my design process, if you like, no matter what I draw, I tend to draw it within a cube structure. For perspective.
Yeah.
And so I was in a cafe and I was drawing him on a little sketch pad, and I drew this, and then I drew a circle up on the top, and I was going to design some bowl, some vase or something like that. And I thought, that's a nice simple shape. It's a hemisphere and a cube. And I thought, what? I said, an egg cup, And so then I looked up the internet and said, but it's such a simple shape. I said,
surely
loads of people. Oh yeah, but I couldn't find anyone, and it's not that I wasn't copywriting that shape anyway.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And they're geometrical shapes; anyone can use them. And so I thought it's nice and simple. I'll make it, and I hand turn the inside of the hemisphere, which is different to a lot of companies that make, say, that kind of thing. They have a machine that does it, which leaves a very bad finish.
Okay.
Right, because the bit just tears the grain.
And is that from a practical point of view for volume that they need to do that, do you think, or is it just...
Yeah, and because of that, they're able to knock those out at a much cheaper price. Do you know what I mean? But the finish isn't there. So I thought, well, I'm all about quality.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? So I thought, well, if I just turn them, and see how that... And it's a nicer finish with the chisel.
And actually, maybe we should take a moment as well to tell people about the range and what we have in stock here in the store. You mentioned the egg cup, or the egg cube rather there, but I know you have a few others. Perhaps you might want to tell us about that.
Yeah, so I started with the egg cube, and I thought, that's nice. Wouldn't it be nice to have a range? Looking towards people who make pottery, they have a range. And I thought, wouldn't that be a good idea? So I sat down then to see what I could come up with. So I thought, well, what else would you need? I said, well, what about a sugar bowl? And so the sugar bowl is the exact same dimensions as 4 egg cubes put together. And then I thought, is there anything else I could make now that would kind of
complement it, I suppose?
Yeah, and relate to that, to the size. So then I cut the sugar bowl in half, and there was a shallower bowl then, which was a spice dish. Now these can be used for anything you want to use, but I just find it helps people.
I think people need a bit of guidance sometimes.
Exactly.
They're unsure when they've seen a unique product that what exactly purpose it fulfills.
No more than myself. And then I thought, okay, now can I go bigger? So then the platter, which I came up with, is 4 sugar dishes together. Okay. So it all relates. Yeah. And
it's kind of modular nearly in a sense then,
modular.
Is it?
That's the word I was looking for. Yeah. So I also have then the kitchen cube, which just came out of someone wanted to buy say 4 egg cubes and a spice dish and a sugar dish, and I just happened to put them all together one day as I was wrapping them up for them.
And you looked at it
and I just thought, hey, wouldn't that be nice? Because it all fits nicely together. And I thought, if I could just wrap that simply with, say, some nice, brown, almost looking handmade paper and a handmade string and that, and that's how the kitchen cube came, and people really like that because it's like it's a gift ready to go.
Yeah. And I think as well, having seen it myself, obviously in person, and actually I love the smell of it. Was the Danish oil you mentioned?
Danish oil, yeah.
I think people have a desire for something that they can identify what it is, as you said, but being handmade, simplicity sometimes is almost better. I think if you go too complicated, people feel removed from it, And we've also spoken, I suppose, before about, you said you made a conscious decision to be more creative in your life. So you've another aspect, you're quite interested in music as well.
Yeah, well, I gigged for a good few years now. I was 30 before I decided to... It was a dream I had since I was a teenager. Yeah. And I messed around with guitars and stuff like that. And then I turned 30 and I just thought, you know what? Let's give it a go. Let's give it a go. So then I saw an ad for a band looking for a singer, and I joined that, and it went from there. And I gigged around Galway for about 10 years. Okay. I played bass and I sang, and it was great. It was the pub scene though. It was covers. So then the creativity in me was like, no.
You weren't happy doing covers. You wanted to do your own thing.
Yeah. So, but I couldn't really find like musicians that were willing to go completely down that road. You know what I mean? Plus I have kids, as you know, and being out at night was not easy.
Yeah.
Having to get up early with kids, and a lot of weekends were gone because you'd be out gigging the night before, say weddings and whatnot. So I decided to just kind of park that there just a few years ago, 5 years ago. I said, I'm just going to park that for a while. But at home, I have a small little studio space, and I mess around.
Do you find that a good outlet? Because I spoke to another artist recently, and they said that in some ways they find themselves motivated by the music they're listening to create something. Do you find, like for you, especially when you're doing the wood turning, that you need that kind of accompaniment of music to kind of help you concentrate? Or do you prefer to...
It depends on the mood I'm in for that, but definitely music helps with creation of design. Yeah, it can definitely depend on the type of music you listen to. It can affect what you're about to create.
Yes,
for sure. I think it goes for all kinds of things, but yeah.
Oh yeah, I found that especially if you want to go for a run or go to the gym, you'd better be very careful in your choice of music, or you definitely set yourself the wrong tempo.
Yeah.
And have you found then, being self-employed, as I've probably found myself, and having kids, the work-life balance, the pressure to both create the product and sell the product, but also then to balance that with time at home for the kids. How do you manage that, I suppose?
Well, that's the $1 million
question.
Yeah, isn't it? The balance. I always say the biggest reward for being self-employed like that is having flexible time. If you can, depending on what you're doing and that. But I can be flexible in that I can bring the kids to school, and I can collect the kids, and I'm lucky I have the workshop beside the house as well, so I can come in for dinner and that kind of thing. Yeah. So I like that aspect of it. Even being self-employed can be tough. Financially, very tough sometimes. But
I suppose you said working from home there. The one thing I found a little bit difficult working from a home office was that, like, creating that level of separation between what is work and what is home, and then actually getting a productive day's work done while at home. Do you find that, I suppose if the kids are going to school, that's one thing, but like when they're around, is your focus shifted a little? Do you find...
That was something I struggled with a good few years ago, before I ever even had kids.
Yeah.
I really had to
put yourself in
discipline there. I had to, for a while, because I came from the PAYE situation, where it was show up at 9 and leave at 5 or half 5. And whatever you got done between that, you got done. But it's different then when you're self-employed, because you can't just punch in those hours without having a yield.
Yeah, I suppose you could, but you probably wouldn't last very long, I'd imagine.
Yeah, exactly. So my focus then went from I must be in the workshop from 9 to 6 to I want to get this volume done today. Okay. And I found that more beneficial, you know what I mean? So I have a goal at the end of the day. And that way as well...
You sort of created your own flexi time then in a way, have
exactly.
you?
Yeah. So that way then, if I know at the end of the day I want to have this much work done, then throughout the day, whatever happens, I just have to adjust. It's like the GPS car systems, say if you have a destination...
Calculating your route.
Yeah, exactly. If you veer off, it'll still calculate you back onto that. Yeah. So anyway, that's...
And for anyone who's, shall we say, in a similar position to yourself, would you have any particular advice about like moving towards the more creative life, or giving up the, as you call it, POE life to do your own thing? Did you make a straight jump into it?
I moved from Laois to Galway. So I made a decision there that I actually, when I first moved to Galway, I worked delivering coleslaw.
Okay.
In a van, driving a van from 4 a.m. till 5 p.m. Because, you needed cash straight away. And, my parents said to me, what are you doing? Taking on, this isn't, you're not going to stick this. My dad was a lorry driver for years. Yeah. He did crazy hours for years. And he just knew that I wasn't the type of person that would actually stick that. Yeah. And he was absolutely right. So I stuck it for 6 weeks.
And it was probably a very long 6 weeks, so I'd imagine, was it?
It was actually, I stuck it for 3 before I handed in my notice.
And then I said, how long before I can go?
I'll give you 3 weeks to train in another guy. It was tough going, and there was no creativity in it whatsoever. Do you know what I mean? And I needed that. You know what I mean? So then I said, look, I can't do that. There's no point in me looking for something else yet. Now let's see. So at the time I was renting over near Ardrahan. Yeah. And I asked the people, the landlords we rented from, did they have a shed I could start with? And they had a garage next door, and I started there. Just wood turning, because the only machines I had at that time was a wood lathe and a bandsaw. Yeah. And so I started that, and then I started making products and putting them into shops. And it built up slowly like that.
And given the access to equipment that you said you had there, how much of where you went from there was lessons in education that you'd learned through letterfrac and so forth, and how much of it was self-taught and kind of discovery of a more creative side to what you were doing?
Yeah, so in letterfrac, wood turning wasn't on the curriculum. I happened to learn it almost accidentally in that there's a wonderful wood turner out there called Angie Williams, I think is her name. Excellent wood turner. You'd find her on the internet. And she has a workshop which is near the college, and she happened to be, I think, filling in for one of the tutors on this day. And the project I had designed needed wood turning, and so she gave me a quick demo that day of how to use the chisels and whatnot, and I loved it.
Yeah.
And then I could never let it go after that.
Yeah.
But wood turning wasn't actually on the curriculum at that time.
Okay.
The college has changed now. It's a much more expansive course now that covers all different sides. But back then it was a more limited course. Not sure if I answered your question really. But
Oh no, I was just kind of curious because I have often found in conversations, be it within my own industry and others as well, that like a lot of what people learned, they might have been put on the path by an education or direction, but anyone who I've found who actually does their own thing or is good at it has generally found that whatever they've learned within the system isn't sufficient for them, and they've gone off. And I suppose it's interesting to see that it wasn't actually part of the curriculum, and the way you went was by coincidence.
Yeah, I have to say that when I was in letterfrac, it was a 2-year course, and there was a lot crammed into 2 years. But I really have learned a lot by actually doing it myself in my own workshop and problem solving.
Yeah.
I have learned a lot more since then. But I was young when I went there, and like I said, there was a lot of stuff crammed into 2 years.
Yeah.
So I think problem solving is a big part of being creative as well. Otherwise, if you're afraid of problem solve, everyone is a problem solver. Yeah. But if you're afraid to use that aspect, then your designs are going to be very basic because you won't allow yourself to create.
You always have the safety net of
Now there's a limit as well. Like when I design as well, say furniture, whatnot, I do have to look around my workshop and say, do I have the machines to actually make this without having to outsource? Because then that gets complicated if you outsource and things like that. So but within reason, you try not to limit yourself in the creativity.
And given your own experience of being self-employed and kind of pursuing the more creative and artistic life, like, would you be, shall we say, supportive of your own kids doing something similar? Or would you prefer them to go through more formal education first? Or
No, I genuinely, I'll support my kids in whatever they want to do. And I may look back and regret that statement, but I genuinely believe that I will, and my wife will as well. But I mean, we all need guidance in the beginning. Everybody, if you can go through a system that's been made up, because that's what a lot of, say, courses in colleges are. They're like, someone has done it before and they thought, okay, this is going to be useful if I put this into this little package. I see it as well, because I was trying to teach myself, say, Logic Pro and things like that for music off YouTube. And while there's so much on YouTube, it's almost like there's too much.
It can be a bit overwhelming when you're looking for something.
So it's nice to have a bit of a structure to help you from just in the beginning stages anyway, until you get to a stage where you're like, you're more mature in that process, and you can actually make decisions yourself on that. So I would encourage them, if they know what they want to do by the time they're not everybody does.
I suppose the reason I ask is I had a very interesting discussion the other day, and it basically was saying that like a lot of self-identity is tied up with something that happened to you as a youth. So someone who's told that they're good at school will always try and do well because their sense of self-worth has come from accepting praise from others, and then they started to identify themselves then as, oh yes, I'm good because I'm good at ABC.
Right.
So for me, I suppose I was quite good at school. I always got very good marks, and I thought, okay, well, that must be what I must do. I must go to college, go through the system, get a real job, whatever. And then it was only when we opened the restaurant and I found the opportunity to actually train to be a chef that I got, actually, you know what, I'm enjoying this. I kind of wish I'd done this sooner, because that would have been maybe mid-20s. And then, as with everyone who becomes a photographer, especially a wedding photographer, I fell into that by accident as well, and I do enjoy that too. So I'm actually kind of enjoying this aspect of doing and creating rather than consuming, and I kind of wonder, is this something I should have pursued sooner, or would it be just a case that I had identified myself so much because, not through any fault of any adults or parents around me, but they probably obviously, given it was the 80s, told me, go to school, get an education and so forth. I just think that us as parents, given that I have small kids too, we've much more opportunities open to us these days. I don't have to take a 9-to-5 job. I can take a gamble on doing something like this because the world in general and people are much more supportive of this. Even though I think we had a conversation that probably similar reactions to our family, that when I left behind my previous business, that, you know, with the best one in the world, they thought I was crazy to go and do my own thing.
Sure, yeah.
And did you find that, like, you know, like, given what you're doing now and you've been doing it for a while, I can see how it fits in Ireland in 2019, but like 10 years ago, were people going like, what is it that you're doing?
Yeah, I mean, my parents would worry if I didn't have a load of work on. And, you know, my mother, you know, the first thing, well, are you busy? And in the beginning, I'd be too honest. And I said, well, no, I have a job on now, but I'm not sure what I have on, you know, the week after that. Yeah, maybe you should just go get a job. Straight away. You know, that was, maybe forget about that for a while now. And I remember it got to a stage where she said to me, because she knew I wasn't listening to her, she said, do you know what you should do? You should sell your machines and get a job. Do you know what I mean? So that there was no way I could get back to this.
There's no way going back.
Yeah. So it was amazing. Like, when I first decided to go out on my own, they looked at me as if I had said, I'm running off to join the circus. Really? They looked at me like that. But that's where they were coming from. Do you know what I mean? Probably that generation.
It's also a generational thing too, to be fair, because, you know, I don't think our parents had the luxury of doing what they wanted to do. They just had the practicality of doing what we needed. Sure. Given that, I suppose, we talk about the recession we just had, but I guess they lived through the late 70s and early 80s, which in Ireland, I'd imagine, from what I hear, wasn't exactly...
Yeah, I think there was an even bigger recession back then. I'm not sure. But.
Yeah, I hear mention of it, but it's funny that culturally it seems like it's belonged to the last generation, so we don't seem to know about it. We only seem to be aware of our own suffering, you know? Yeah,
but I mean, that recession that we've just kind of, some people say we're out of, maybe we are, maybe we're not. I don't know. See what Brexit does. I don't know. That was tough enough, in fairness, you know. When
I opened the restaurant in 2009, people thought we were crazy.
Right.
And I had just left the building trade, which had, when I'd entered it in construction in Roadstone in 2005, was at the peak, and it was really at the real end of it in 2009. So the thought that we were going out and spending money to open our own business, people thought we were crazy. But do you know what? People still got to eat. And just like now, people still have to drink coffee, you know, so...
That's right, yeah.
Yeah, it's just interesting to see. And have you had any particular, like, given, say, the early days when your parents weren't, well, as I said, I'm sure they were concerned. Did you find that level of concern from other people and maybe that element of doubt about doing it, did that struggle in some way affect your creativity, or did it kind of reinforce your resolve to make it happen?
It scared me, for sure, yeah. But I was always headstrong.
Yeah.
And so I stuck with it. I knew what the alternative was.
Yeah.
And I just didn't want to go back to that, you know. And like I said, the delivering coleslaw from 4 a.m.
was a powerful motivator.
Yeah. Now you said it. That definitely was the kick I needed to kind of say, you know,
this is not for me.
This is not for me, you know. So, and everyone's different. That's what people have to remember. I mean, it's a lifestyle thing at the moment. If you look on the internet or even listen to Gary Vee, you know that guy.
He's Fatrick, or yeah.
He's. I mean, a lot of what he says is good advice. Some of it might be a little reckless for some people, but one thing I remember hearing was follow your passion. If you want to be successful at something, follow your passion, and that means don't follow the notes and dollars.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Don't that. You know, money's never completely done it for me as far as work goes. Ever, you know, and that's not saying you need money obviously to pay the bills. Everybody knows this, you know, so we're not being completely reckless, but I don't think people even that I know that do well, I see that they're doing well because they love what they're doing, not because
they're looking after the money.
Exactly, yeah.
And what I think is interesting too is that for me, like, I would have thought that kids coming along would have made me go, well, no, let's just go back and take a job. But it actually has kind of motivated me more to be willing to take a chance to do something so that they can see that it's okay going forward in their lives to decide to do what they love,
Definitely.
as long as it makes them happy and they can afford to pay the bills. No more than that, like I wouldn't be particularly motivated by money right now. I mean, that sounds ridiculous when you say it. I know.
As your bank manager.
Yeah, I know, right? But like, end of the day, I can afford to, pay my mortgage and go for dinner once in a while. And once I have time with my family, I'm happy enough. Did you find that as well? Like, I mean, once the kids came along, did that like give you any change in motivation a bit?
I thought it would more than it did.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Obviously, there was extra responsibilities had to be done, and more so when they started school.
Yeah.
That's when the extra costs really came in.
And I've only had the very start of that, and that is surprising how that can add up.
Yeah, absolutely. And my daughter started secondary school this year, and wow, that's a big gear shift. That's a big gear shift. But you manage, you get through it. But I've been self-employed for so long now.
You'd be a terrible employee.
I would be a terrible.
Yeah, that's what I always say about myself. I would be an awful employee. So
I would, and I can see the benefits then of that on your mental state as well, of not being in a job that you absolutely hate. It's okay to be in a job that you can get by and pay the bills, that and do what you have to do. Because I've spoken to people as well who don't know what they'd like to do.
Yeah.
And so they're happy enough to stay where they are until they do, or maybe they'll just stay doing that and they're just happy, enjoying themselves at the weekend, and that's fine too.
Yeah.
Like I say, that's the thing. Everybody is
different.
When I started out as well, first, the odd time I met people who didn't actually believe that. They believed I should be in a pensionable job.
Yes.
And they were looking at me like, why would you want to do this? Do you not want a big car and a big house? And really, they've never been my goals. Big house, big car, that kind of thing. Just a nice, comfortable, just to have a nice home. Yeah. That's what's important to me.
I suppose the important thing there is that you're identifying your happiness as not being something that you buy, but like how you are in your life and how you feel.
You literally can't buy. You just can't buy that.
Which, again, I find the older I get, I suddenly get new interpretations of these things I used to like roll my eyes at and stuff like that, and I go, it does make sense, but only because I got the perspective of it now. I couldn't have understood that before because it wouldn't have meant anything to me.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, it's an experience for sure.
Yeah, and I suppose I made some little notes here now, so I don't want to throw you any curveballs as well. But is there any not necessarily in the field of wood carving or wood turning or products, but is there anyone or anything in particular that gave you a bit of inspiration or continues to give you a bit of inspiration? Something that kind of like is a bit of a touchstone when you might be struggling with anything, be it the music or anything else, or even if it's a favourite album or a movie that you like to watch that gets you in a kind of happy place?
Spending time with my wife and kids, really, that's when I'm happiest. Yeah. And some people might think that's a cliche thing to say, but genuinely, that's when I'm happiest with them. And it doesn't matter where we are, what we're doing. We try and get out a lot, out into nature, whether it's cycling or climbing the diamond in Letterfrack, or just for a walk with the dog or that kind of thing. Yeah. That really helps. If you said about advice for anyone maybe starting out in self-employed and creative world, you can get too focused. That's the best way I can describe it. I often found that if I was too focused on something for too long, I didn't feel great, and I needed to kind of just leave it for now. Just get out, get some fresh air. That probably goes for a lot of things, but the creativity can just dry up for a little while. Do you know what I mean? And I often found then that just leave it, walk away, go have your lunch, go have a cup of coffee down at the Tree Bar store. Best coffee this side of the Shannon, and then come back to it. And that really does work. Yeah. That at the time I was like, I had just read that, somewhere, just leave it, go off, and you're like, but sure, I've heard that before. Yeah. But it works. It works for anyone. No, I found that too. I found sometimes if I'm facing into a particularly big edit for a job, and it can seem a bit daunting, and sometimes you start looking at the photos and go, man, these are crap. Did I take these? What was I doing? And then when you go away and get a bit of fresh perspective, you realise, well, I've just been looking at them for too long. And I think it's the same as anything. If you look at anything for too long, you're just going to find the flaws and start to hate it. Absolutely. So I actually found that breaking my edits up into
different sections for me is much more effective, you know, and I don't hate it by the end.
Absolutely.
So we've covered a good bit there. We might just let everyone know about where they can find you online, and also where they can find you in real life. Well, not find you in real life, but find your products in real life.
Yeah. Okay, so
my address is H91.
So my website has all the details and all the links on the bottom. It's just roswellstanley.com. ROSWELL Stanley. That weird name that I was.
Oh, should we touch on that for a moment?
If you like. I really had no part in it. So my mother, I've asked her numerous times, where did you get the name? And she said, well, I saw it in a book and I liked it. And I didn't happen to be National Geographic by any chance, did it? Or hadn't to do with aliens? Or she hadn't heard of the UFO incident.
So it was genuinely just a coincidence?
Genuinely, she liked the name. And I'm like, okay, I'll take your word for that.
And did you find that, like, I suppose what's great with having a unique name like yourself is that you can apply that to your product, and it gives it the personal sense, but it also gives it a bit of distinction too. It's not like, I don't mean any disrespect to any John Burkes out there, but it's not John Burke design, which doesn't sound as powerful in some ways as Roswell Stanley design.
Well, thank you for that. I'll take that as a compliment. But I mean, I know amazing designers who have ordinary names, for want of a better word.
Oh yeah, I suppose I should rephrase that. What I'm saying is that, like, it gives a sense of not distinction wouldn't be the word I'm looking for, but there is an element of it piques people interested a little bit more.
Look, there is an advantage to having a different name in that I can have any email address I want, and any Twitter or that kind of thing, and it's an icebreaker as well. People actually, you know, it's a way of talking. I used to do craft fairs years ago as well, and they'd see the name and they'd come up, and sometimes that would actually draw them to my stall. The name, and they start asking me about the name before they'd actually start looking at the products. So it can definitely be an advantage sometimes.
Okay, so we've probably talked for a good long while there. You can hear a car starting in the background as well. So
this is real life.
This is real life, yeah. So we've talked for a good while there. I know that we have a good selection of your range of items here in Tree Bark store in Moycullen. And physically, where can people find your products other than here? Is there other locations?
The other location at the moment is in Westport, in Liberties, down by the docks, down by the quays, which is a lovely little cafe cum craft shop. Like yourselves here as well, and all things Connemara in Clifton.
Oh yes.
All the other places have closed for the winter, so we'll be restocking places now, say hopefully from after St. Patrick's onwards. But they can order from the website as well if they go down to the little shopping bag in the bottom. Okay, that's from the Etsy store. But come to the Tree Bark store. you just get the best coffee, and you can look at the products. And I mean, what an experience!
Yeah,
it's just.
Well, we're quite happy to be here. It's nice to have, locals such as yourself, as well as other Irish producers and craft makers. And I'm just fortunate that a lot of people I've encountered in my work as photography the last few years has been willing to come on board with us. And it's just nice to have a space that I'd like to think we have a pretty chill vibe that people can come and hang out.
Absolutely, it's brilliant, and I'd love to formally welcome you as a shop to Moycullen, because
thank you very much.
Definitely a welcome. It's amazing that this used to be the post office where I came so many times, and now I'm here enjoying coffee.
Yeah,
it's brilliant.
Don't worry, some people still think it's the post office. We get at least once a week where someone drops in trying to bring a letter. Okay, well, I think we might wrap it up with that. So, Ross, thank you very much for taking the time to talk to us.
Thank you, Jay. I really appreciate, first of all, you taking my products into your shop yourself and Yvonne, and because it's just a wonderful space, and to see my products with the other amazing products, that's just fantastic. That means a lot as well, you know, to the products that are around your products. Really is amazing. So thank you very much for that and the opportunity, and for the opportunity of this podcast as well.
And thanks for being the guinea pig or sacrificial lamb. I'm not sure which it is for the very first episode.
I'm honoured.
Yeah. Thanks very much.
Thank you.
Okay, folks, thank you very much for tuning into the very first episode of Creative Voices. We're still getting the hang of some of our audio equipment, so if there are any unusual noise in the background, I do apologise for that, but I will get it better as we go along. We have a few episodes in the bag for you guys, so feel free to jump straight ahead into the next one if you'd like. Failing that, you can send us a message by finding us on Facebook or Instagram, Treebark Store. You can also send us an email, hello@treebarkstore.com, or you can look up my photography website on www.p3bphotography.com. I'm looking forward to talking to you again soon and hearing a few more creative voices. Thanks very much, and catch you on the next episode.